My name is Marcelo Tafoya. I'm the National Civil Rights Co-Chair for LULAC. And actually, our president, Rosa Rosales, was supposed to be here. She had to go out of town. She asked me to come in her place. Now, the PowerPoint presentation, I was proud to be part of that in Austin. They were putting it all together. And it kind of explains just about everything that you can consider when it comes to a situation like that. But being involved with civil rights, I have several things that occur to me that are simultaneous, almost the same thing. I'll give you an example. In Giddings, Texas, a woman with 2 children and a man was stopped by the police. The woman happened to be an Anglo, in fact. The children were light complected, they were Anglo. And the gentleman beside her was dark complected. The police officer says, "Madam, show me your driver's license," etc. And she did. Then he asked, "Who are the children?" She said, "They're my children." And the gentleman said, "My husband." "No way. There's no way that he can be your husband." I said, "Well, what do you mean, sir? I mean, that's my husband." He says, "No, he's not." "Yes, he is." He said, "Do you have any papers?" The gentleman says, "No, I don't have anything with me." He said, "Get off the car." So he got off the car, and they sat him on the side of the road there. And he asked him again, "Do you have any identification?" He says, "No." He says, I said, "Well, what are you?" He said, "What do you mean, what am I?" He says, "I'm a Puerto Rican." I said, "What do you mean a Puerto Rican?" He says, "But you're black." He says, "Well, there are black Puerto Ricans." He said, "Well, where's your paperwork?" He said, "Sir, I don't have it with me." So he kept him there for an hour and a half, waiting for his commanding officer to come down. And after an hour and a half later, the gentleman had to come back, had to go with him to the police station, wait till his wife went home, came back with the identification, okay? In the meantime, the sad thing about it is the police officer was a black officer. I mean, that in itself, to me, would have been the shock of shock, right? How he couldn't understand. How could this lady be married to a Puerto Rican, a different color? I'm talking about profiling. That's that. I've had other issues similar to that, where people have called and said, "I have been discriminated." What do you mean? He said, "Yeah, I was pulled over, and I was asked to get out of the car. I was asked if I could search my car. I said, no. And right off the bat, he said, okay, then I'm going to search you." I said, "Well, what did I do?" He said, "I don't have to tell you what you did. I'm a police officer. As long as I have this badge, I can do whatever I want." Now, this happened in a little town called Cedar Park. The gentleman happened to be white, by the way. He wasn't even Hispanic or black or anything. But in that area, a lot of the white people are considered what they call cedar choppers. They're people that are backward, okay? They live out in the country. They have a completely different manner of living. So there's a lot of officers that discriminate even against them. And you know, it not has to do with color anymore. Now we're getting to the point right now that we have Asian Americans that are being a large minority community now. In fact, they figure by what, I think they said 2020, they'll be almost par to the Latinos. Now in Austin, we have 2 Asian Chamber of Commerce. That's how big our community is. Samsung was from Korea. They brought in a lot of people. And they also are being profiled because they claim they drive too slow, they don't know our rules, our law, they don't know really how to conduct themselves. So the police pull them over, and the first thing they ask is, "I need your driver's license. What are you doing on the road? You're driving too slow." Well, you know, I don't know about you, but my dad drives kind of slow. I get after him also, but he's not up to par as far as speed. But I'm saying racial profiling can occur in any manner and any place. Your civil rights can also be done at any time and any place, no matter who you are or what you're doing. You're young, and you are going to see this more and more. Because the first thing officers go after is the fact that if you're young, you're either on drugs, what are you doing out? You're tagging? I mean, there's a lot of things that they use to find out what you're doing. Example, in Kyle, Texas, a young lady works at a pizza place near HEB there. She got off work and she had a little stigmatism in her eyes. She went into HEB, bought a soda, didn't like it, threw it away, went back in, was standing behind a gentleman. After she bought her thing, she went outside. The gentleman walked up to her, and the man in shorts and a t-shirt, right? And he said, what are you doing here? Are you laundering? I mean, what are you doing here, young lady? She said, I'm waiting for my mother. She said, you were standing behind me and you were watching me put my credit card through. So you were trying to take my number, weren't you? The young lady said, I don't know what you're talking about, sir. He said, yes, you know what I'm talking about. He said, oh, and about that time her mother drives up, right? And comes and said, what's the problem? She said, oh, by the way, I'm a police officer. He's an off-duty Austin police officer away from his district, away from his area. Yet he started to accuse this young lady of something she didn't do. Now you talk about racial discrimination, profiling. He did it right there. Now, we brought it before the police department. All the mother wanted is an apology. It's been there for 4 months and they haven't done a thing about it. Okay, good example. Now, another thing just happened. I happened to be on the safety task force in Austin. Just the last meeting we had, they passed a resolution saying that the police department, before they give a report on an incident, they will look at their video tape before they write the report. And I asked the question, why? Why does he have to see the video before he gives his report? Because to me, if you're an individual arrested and you're taken in for questioning, and they ask you all these questions, why don't they let you see the video first before you can answer? They don't give you that right. But yet the police officers in Austin, the majority have gone to court, and none of them have come out with indictments. Here's a lady shot a young man in the back while he was laying sprawl in the back. All she got was fired. Then she comes back and tries to get her job, and they didn't give her job back. But you talk about the young man's civil rights and everything happened just yesterday, 2 days ago. A police officer chases a black man around the building, shoots him in the back. The guy falls down. He goes back up in front of him and shoots him again. Now, he just got fired by the chief. The very first time we have a chief that was willing to do these things. Okay? Now, he was fired. There was no charges brought against him or anything. Now, to me, that young man that was laying there, of course, he accused him of having the gun. That's why he shot him the first time. But why did he shoot him after he was laying sprawled from him? Talk about civil rights. You talk about profiling. Yet they have classes, a lot of classes they have for police officers. But for some reason, they do not learn the lesson that, first of all, you don't judge people till after you got all the facts. And even then, it's not up to you because you're a police officer that you can judge. That's why you have a jury. That's why you have a judge sitting on the bench. But this is happening everywhere. It's not only happening here in San Antonio. It's happening in Giddings. It's happening in Austin. It's happening in El Paso, in Odessa. I lived in Lubbock. It happened a lot in Lubbock. Now, mind you, this is not only Anglo police officers. We're talking about Latino police officers, black officers doing the same thing. And we must, one thing, the most important thing that we have to do is find a way to educate them. And one of the things that we used a long time ago, which they quit doing, is having police officers walk the beat. Walk in the neighborhood. Find out who we are, our mannerisms. I was at the legislature last year. They said more than 3 Mexicans speaking together, there must be a plot taking place. You know? And I told one of the officers, well, what do you mean? He said, well, we don't want you to congregate that way. You need to spread out. I'm sorry, you know, I mean, we're friends, you know, we're talking about legislation that's coming up. But they use any excuse whatsoever. And why, I don't know. Because I assure you, if one of their family would be treated the same way, they would be up here talking about the same thing.